This is our second time in the Eldorado Wilderness area, stark volcanic wilderness south of Las Vegas. And I can identify the mountains a little better than I did the first time here. Here you've got a peak called Archback. You can see the look of an archback there. And here's our destination, Lonesome Peak. And then just to the right of Lonesome Peak is a peak called Pigs and Zen. So we don't know why they named it that, but Archback looks like an archback. Lonesome looks kind of lonesome. Pigs and Zen, I'm not sure about that. And then moving further to the right, and we'll identify all these. There's another peak called the Nelson benchmark, and we'll find that also. But for now, the goal is Lonesome Peak. I have not climbed Lonesome Peak before. Looks like there are a number of vertical areas surrounding Lonesome Peak. I think going around to the right behind the peak and then ascending appears to be the the best way up, at least on a map. We're going to find out. So let's head across the wilderness and head toward Lonesome Peak. And by the way, when I was referring to a stark volcanic wilderness, yeah, it looks like what I was sitting on just then as I was, boy, that was sharp, as I was recording, is just a lump of molten lava that froze at one point, and there's all kinds of this um, molten lava, magma surrounding this area. Very sharp. Everything that you can imagine um, touching is just like a cheese grater. And so, yeah, in this area, definitely lots of loose rock. There are no soft landings if you slip. And then, in addition, um, you will find waiting for you if you should slip. Not only the sharp rocks, but lots of friendly cacti. I think that might be a California barrel cactus, not sure. And there's another beautiful plant, yucca, sharp, sword-like leaves there. And the whole wilderness here is full of those yucca plants. And the challenging thing is sometimes you've got a very narrow passage. You've got a drop off on one side of you and a cliff on the other side of you. And right in the center, you have one of these sharp yucca plants that you need to find a way to get around. So yeah, challenging area. Well, let's go ahead and head toward Lonesome Peak. There are a few challenging hidden washes along the way to cross, but the target here is to head right between the light colored sandstone formations on the left and Lonesome Peak on the right as we watch for a way to circle around the right side of Lonesome Peak. Continuing our approach of Lonesome Peak, and you can see our target passageway between the sandstone and Lonesome Peak, and then we circle around the right side and behind Lonesome Peak, where I think the incline is going to be less vertical, but we'll see. And just to get a look around us, they're looking up toward the Pigs and Zen, which is behind that ridge, and looking down toward Nelson Benchmark, which is behind that ridge. So yeah, everything's behind a ridge. Some more of our friendly yucca plants. And yeah, here's the car. The Beast parked on Highway 165 where we started, and then continuing around. And looking toward Archback now. And from this perspective, I'm not sure if this is Archback or if this is Archback. And I'm gonna bet this is, but we'll find out. I've got the compass coordinates of a number of these peaks, and we'll check them out as when we get to the top of Lonesome Peak. So continuing on. And by the way, ahead you can see where the whole landscape drops off in the distance there and becomes totally mountainous, as opposed to the plains or the flatter area that you see over here. It's like two different worlds, and we'll see that from the top of Lonesome Peak. Okay, there's Lonesome Peak on the right and the sandstone formation on the left. Sandstone, Lonesome Peak, and then a gully between. And so what I'm going to do is head down into that gully. You don't want to be too high on the right here, because the closer you get to the base of these high points on the right, the deeper the gullies are that you'll need to cross. So what we're going to do is head down and then find a way up right through that gully that's going to lead up around the right side of Lonesome Peak. Let's see how that works. No promises. Okay, there's Lonesome Peak, keeping an eye on the peak here. And another endearing feature of this wilderness area, and we've already spoken about the yuccas, is that you're walking along what seems like it should be flat, and all of a sudden you're faced with something like this. And there, by the way, is that sandstone formation that we looked at from the beginning. And yeah, so here we are now in a boulder-filled gully, and we're continuing to wind our way toward Lonesome Peak. So let's just see how that works out. If you stay too high, yeah, if you stay high, you can avoid the gully and how it slows you down. But if you stay too high, then you're faced with drop-offs into the next gully. Tons of gullies in this area, but yeah, makes it fun. And by the way, Lonesome Peak on the right, and then that peak that we summited earlier that I called North Lonesome Peak, and you can see the saddle between the two. And perhaps another way up Lonesome Peak would be to go to that saddle and then head up the ridge line I'm going to try to, as I mentioned, angle around the right side and go behind and then up. Every now and then along the way, as you try to figure out a logical way to navigate the ridges and the gullies, you'll come across some navigation experts, the trail that is made by bighorn sheep. At least that's what we think. And then just to get an idea where we are, you can see a lot of places where you might not want to ascend. That is not Lonesome Peak, by the way. That I think is Pigs and Zen, or at least part of Pigs and Zen Peak from this direction. This is the gully I've kind of been in. I haven't gone all the way down. A lot of boulders down there. So I've navigated a little higher and it seems to be working, but one never knows. There's the sandstone formations that we used as an original guide. Here's another gully leading downward. And let's continue up here and see if we can find an approach to circle around in a counterclockwise direction to circle around Lonesome Peak. And here, having topped this next little high point, I can see a route that may lead up around the right side of Lonesome Peak. We don't know. There are a lot of surprises here, as you can see when you look around. Things that looked, flat and gradual and easy from a distance are a lot more rugged, more vertical areas than you imagined could exist between you and your goal. Okay, let's go down into the gully and then head up the right side of Lonesome Peak, see what we find. Okay, the slope is looking much more gradual around the right side of Lonesome Peak from this perspective. This is why I don't navigate in the gullies where you can't see your surroundings too well. Anyway, yeah, I'm thinking that maybe an opening would be right up this way. We don't know. Looks nice from here, but yeah, there could be drop-offs. Lots of surprises between here and that opening, or at least beyond what we can see through the opening. There's Lonesome Peak, and then just looking around. What a beautiful wilderness. The deeper you get, the more you see. Lots of surprises here. Okay, heading up. See if we can cross between, well, right through this opening, and then take a left and head up to Lonesome Peak Summit. We don't know, but let's see what happens. Okay, that cactus that I identified as California beryl earlier, I think this is more likely candidate for a California beryl cactus right here. And there beyond, you see the opening that we originally came through, and there's that sandstone high point ridge hill. We passed to the left of that on our way. It was the right, and then over through that direction is the return back. And the reason that I make so much of an effort to identify landmarks and just become familiar with all the landmarks in an area, is that is my navigation. And it's pretty cool because then when uh, when all is said and done, I navigate more by just the feel of the land rather than looking at a GPS, although I admit I am tracking my direction with an app called CalTopo, which is just awesome. The Red Rock Search and Rescue and a number of search and rescue organizations in the country use CalTopo. And yeah, a lot of features, even in the free version. So check that out as a navigational app. And I'm tracking my route with CalTopo, even though I'm not looking at, I'm not referring to it as I go. I'm getting more familiar. It's like when you first um, arrive at a new strange city. Sometimes it's good just to get lost and find your way around, and then you really understand the layout of the streets and the buildings. And that's what I'm doing here, is getting myself lost so I can understand everything around me. There is that opening we're heading toward, or that I originally wanted to head toward. But as I look at the head wall along this ridge to the right of Lonesome Peak, boy, it looks like there are a few different approaches. Some of them look very steep, though, when you get up into the area. It's deceptively simple from this perspective. Maybe it gets a little more challenging as you get higher. So I'm not sure exactly which way I'm going to go. We will find out as we continue. But yeah, here we are looking toward what I believe is the Pigs and Zen Peak area. Not entirely sure. And beyond that would be the Nelson benchmark. You can't see that, but from Lonesome Peak, maybe you can. There is the great grand perspective of my entire approach from Highway 165. You see, let's just go over to 165, which is over on the horizon here. And you can see where I came down around and through. I think I stayed a little higher and it actually worked. But I came down, I think I ended up down in this area and then began to ascend to where I am right now. It's been very easy so far. And then looking around, huge canyon, back up to Lonesome Peak, and the potential approaches to the right of Lonesome Peak. And if those fail, there's always the attempt to go through this opening and circle around the other side of Lonesome Peak, where according to the map that I looked at before I came here, it looked like the terrain was a little more gradual on that other side. But we'll find all that out very soon. Okay, new plan. I was heading for an opening down in this direction to the right of that high point ahead, but I'm kind of fascinated with this area. Looks like there could be some vertical bad spots up here. There's the summit right there. I'm going to go up to the head wall here and then just skirt along the base and see if I can find a way up and over these vertical areas. So let's try that and see what happens. Well, I can't believe I'm doing this. Here is Lonesome Peak, or maybe it's a false summit. We don't know. But I'm just winding my way, weaving my way up through the rocks here. And I'm just heading up through any opening I can find. This definitely is not the way that I'd planned to come, but so far, yeah, it works. Going down is going to be interesting. Maybe I'll find a more gradual downhill. Yeah, looking over in this direction, we don't know what the various landmarks are yet, so we'll find out. There's something definitely that looks like this, sort of, that could be the Nelson benchmark, but I just can't tell from this point. So the best thing is just to continue weaving my way upward and seeing if we can take a right at that head wall and circle around it. I just came up this area. Yeah, it looks loose rock, frightening, but there was never any real exposure and nothing more than a light class 3. I barely had to use my hands, but look where I've landed. Now I'm on a saddle, and it would be on the right side of the Lonely Peak, or Lonesome Peak. Yeah, look at that. Looks like there's a canyon down this direction, either a waterway or a road down there. It might just be a gully. And then, yeah, looking up toward the summit, it looks like it would be possible to circle around the right side up here. Now, had I surfaced, remember that spot, that opening that I was originally shooting for? It was actually right down here. So had I passed through that opening, yes, looks like I could have come up this saddle. So there are two ways to get up here. Weave among the vertical areas like I did, or circle around, come through this opening, and then, yeah, circle around and head up this saddle. We don't know what lies ahead here. It looks like it's possible to summit, but no promises yet. So let's see if we can weave around the right side of this summit block here. Unless it's a false summit, then all bets are off. We'll weave around the right side. And by the way, yeah, you can see, yeah, everything's loose up here, but I am on a relatively level area. So yeah, down to the road, 165, right down through this area, and the beast is parked somewhere along this area. I can't see it, too much glare on the screen, but take my word for it, it is down there on that road. And you can see the opening I passed through on the way from that road, and that'll be the opening we take on the way back. So yeah, let's continue upward and see what things look like above. Right now they're looking less vertical than what I just ascended. So far, so good. Here's a look back down at the saddle and this little stretch that I just did, hugging the rocks on the right. They're on your left on the way up, and that provided some good stability. And there also is, looks like a faint pathway now and then, appears, disappears. And I do believe that pathway could be bighorn sheep because it doesn't look human. Okay, and there's the saddle, and then wow, look at this. We'll look at the surroundings when we get up to the summit. If we get up to the summit, I don't know what lies ahead, but it does look like when we look ahead that it's more gradual than it's been for a long time. So let's get up to this next high point, and you think that could be the summit? That would be really nice. Okay, here we go. Okay, here's the direction I just came up from the saddle, which you cannot, well, you can kind of see it down there, down below. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, here we are. And these are the cliffs that we do not want to climb on this side of Lonely Peak. But look ahead. Wow, it does look like there's one more high point ahead. I don't see an easy way there yet, but let's go a little further. And I would almost bet that the summit of Lonesome Peak is right up here. And if I ever call it Lonely Peak, that's J.R.R. Tolkien's fault with his book The Hobbit and The Lonely Mountain. Anyway, Lonesome Peak. And look around. Oh my gosh. And you can already see the Colorado River below. Definitely stands out, that light blue in this volcanic surrounding. And then, yeah, looking down the direction of the saddle. And yeah, I would almost guess either that's Pigs and Zen or it is Nelson benchmark. We don't know. We'll find out when we get the compass out, get our directional bearings here. But let's go a little further and see if this higher peak ahead is approachable by someone of my level of climbing. Okay, just came from this area. That's where I was standing when we last connected here. Yeah, somewhere up there. And we were looking at that sharp peak that kind of looks from this direction like the Matterhorn. Not wanting to climb that. No. But look at this. There's a little saddle right here. And maybe, just maybe, one could wind around to the left of this knob up here, which is the summit of Lonesome Mountain. And yeah, let's see what happens. There's the saddle. Here's the drop off below, but actually nice wide ledge that I'm on here. And look at this, winding around and hopefully up to the summit. Wow, somebody must have designed this for me. Onward. Okay, I wound around this area and up, and guess what? Woo! Up at the summit of Lonesome Peak. Yeah, looked like the Matterhorn from across the way where I was standing a little bit earlier. So, yeah, let's look around up here, check out some compass coordinates, and just see what we can see from this perspective. And yeah, here is the 360-degree view down to the Colorado River. Oh yeah, look at that. A few landmarks that I know. Let's see if we can identify a few of the landmarks. We're looking at there's Fortification Hill. And this should be Mount Wilson. We don't know for sure, but we're going to find out. Get the compass out, check out coordinates. There are the windmills. And yes, as we saw from below, pretty stark ascent here. But yeah, looking out, we don't know. This is what I called Nelson benchmark. Just not sure. We're going to find out. One thing I am sure of, there's the canyon we came through to get from the highway 165 to where we are, and down here is highway 165. And then let's turn around here. Not a whole lot of place to stand. There is the solar farm south of Las Vegas, that huge solar complex. Let's get a closer look. There it is. And what else can we see? I would almost bet that this is the Mount Charleston Wilderness on the horizon there. And then down in this direction, Boulder City. And then back to what I believe by the shape of it is Fortification Hill. And you see the summit, little rise just to the left of the edge, just to the left of the right edge. Okay, so I'm going to get the compass out and see what we can identify for certain. Okay, after some compass directional research here, Let's see how close I was on my initial guesses. There is Fortification Hill. And over in this direction, Arizona Mount Wilson. Great adventures on Las Vegas area trails to both those locations. And then we come around this direction. And we have Mount Stalker. And I didn't have compass directional coordinates for those. So I can't tell you which one is which right now, but I'll put an annotation on the video. And then around in this direction. Yes, I was right with Nelson Benchmark and Pigs and Zen. So a lot of glare on the screen. Let's see if I can nail Nelson Benchmark right there. That kind of a knob. A lot steeper than the one I'm on. And then Pigs and Zen is just to the right. So Nelson Benchmark and Pigs and Zen. And then let's come around in this direction. And there's the highway where 165 where the Beast is parked. I can't see the Beast, too much glare on the screen. Maybe you can see it. And then over here is Archback. Let's turn around just a little bit more. I'm actually kneeling, so it's a little more difficult to turn around. I'm trying to keep low because very cold wind. It is the second week in December. Okay, and there is the solar farm. Pointed that out a little earlier. And over here, Boulder City, which we also pointed out. And yeah, up in this direction on the horizon, definitely the Mount Charleston Wilderness direction there. And so that's pretty much what I've been able to identify here. Maybe I'll be able to identify more once I take a more careful look at the map. But there you have it. Here we are on Lonesome Peak. And yeah, here is kind of an interesting volcanic cone. See if I can figure out what that is. I don't think that's Lava Butte. But let's figure it out when I'm looking on a map. And here's a sweeping view from the summit of Lonesome Peak, starting at the direction of Nelson Benchmark. See if you can recognize some of the peaks here. And there we are back at Nelson Benchmark. So, Lonesome Mountain. And by the way, there's that peak that I call North Lonesome Peak, right down in this direction. Okay, now let's retrace our way back to the saddle below. There's the saddle. We're going to head down to that saddle and then around and back out to the highway. A look at Lonesome Mountain. Looking back during the return trip, and you can see the saddle on the right, and there's also a saddle on the left that leads up to North Lonesome North Lonesome Peak. That's another adventure in Las Vegas area trails. But the return trip, yeah, it just was a matter of weaving my way down this steep portion from the saddle and then working my way across the base of the cliffs and then down and then finding little trails up here. So I didn't need to walk in the wash below and navigate boulders and other stuff. There's that sandstone marker. And so what we're going to do, we're going to head up to this area, and then we should be able to see the highway 165 and the beast and be on the way back. But I just wanted to show you in a much better lighting as the sun's behind us what things look like around here. And that area is looking up to Pigs and Zen area, which we'll do in the future. So there you have it. Let's go ahead and run it in. And here we are back at the beast, Highway 165. And in the evening sunlight, well, actually it's 3 o'clock, but it gets dark a lot earlier. There you can see toward Pigs and Zen. And then in the center there is Lonesome Mountain. Then over to Archback. And I'm not sure what this one is. We'll identify it. There's Archback. Remember that passage between Lonesome Peak and the sandstone formations there? Better view in much better lighting. And there's Lonesome Peak, and you can actually see the two summits. The further one just a little bit to the left is the true summit. And we summited at this summit and then crossed over. And Pigs and Zen. And just not sure from this perspective, where the Nelson benchmark is. It could be this over here. It could be behind that ridge. And it could also be way down here. I know it has the look of that pillar type look. Anyway, yeah, there you have it. Great adventure up Lonesome Peak. Now let's see if we can get back before rush hour.